Folks, today, before we dive into the show, I want to give you a quick word on our program Win Cycle. We work with leaders and teams who want to perform at a high level, especially when, of course, the pressure is high, the demands are on, the pace is relentless, and of course, as we all know right now, the landscape is filled with change and uncertainty. We take the lessons and systems that we've developed for more than 2 decades of coaching both world-class athletes and top business leaders and applying them directly into you, your team, and your organization. If you're curious about what it might look like for you and your team, head to wincycle.org. That's W-I-N, cycle as in riding a bike, CYCLE.org. And if you have questions, simply want some advice, maybe you want to check in about you and your team, we're always happy to help. We can book a complimentary strategy call with us. It's all on the website. There's no pitch required. Just bring us a challenge and we'll help you think through it. All right, it's a special one today. You're going to love it. Let's bring on the show. I'm Matt Dixon, and welcome to the Purple Patch Podcast. The mission of Purple Patch is to empower and educate every human being to reach their athletic potential. Through the lens of athletic potential, you reach your human potential. The purpose of this podcast is to help time-starved people everywhere integrate sport into life. And welcome to the Purple Patch Podcast. As ever, your host, Matt Dixon. And today, we're going to do something different. We're going to revisit a conversation from last year. And this conversation was special at the time, and it was incredibly relevant. But the reason we're bringing it up today is we think it's even more relevant today in the landscape that we find ourselves at. It's a conversation with an old friend of mine. In fact, it's an old coached athlete of mine, Sami Inkinen. He is the co-founder and CEO of Virta Health, but you'll also know that we dig into his old chapter as the co-founder and COO of Trulia, all the way through its journey to where it went public. And it was someone, Sami, who I had the privilege of coaching for many years. Now, Sami, he is an extraordinary leader. He's also an incredibly accomplished athlete. He's a multiple age group world champion in triathlon. He has raced for years and years and years at the pointy end of the sport. But he's also done other incredible challenges along the way, such as the Leadville 100 mountain bike race, Cape Epic in South Africa, a 5-day challenge on the mountain bike, and perhaps most remarkably, he and his wife rode completely unsupported from California to Hawaii. Yep, just those two in a rowing boat. The list goes on to his accomplishments. But this conversation, it's not about any of those sporting accomplishments. It's actually about you, and specifically how you can apply many of the same principles that fuel world-class athletic performance into help you thrive in both business and life. Because look around right now. Competition is high. Expectations are enormous. The pace, relentless. We are navigating wave after wave of change and uncertainty. Much of it, of course, accelerated by that wonderful thing that is topic du jour, AI. Simply put, we're living in a moment where the world is pretty tough. And I don't think it's going to get any easier, at least anytime soon. So our question isn't how do we kind of sit it out and ride through the storm and wait for it to settle down. Our real question that we need to be answering is how can we equip ourselves to thrive in this new normal, this environment? How do we consistently perform under pressure? How do we adapt when the landscape changes? How do we maintain energy and clarity? And if we're in a position of leadership, how do we create the conditions for our teams to do the same? This is the foundation of the work that I do along with my wife, Kelli, through Win Cycle, our program. We've taken many of the lessons and systems and approaches and used more than 2 decades of world-class Ironman athletes and top business leaders to apply them to executives and teams, to help them prepare, think, perform more like professional athletes, not so they can become athletes themselves necessarily, but so that they can become better performance within this environment. And there is absolutely no better case study of this exact approach than one and only Sami Inkinen. He's one of our originals, as I always like to say. And what makes him particularly interesting isn't just what he achieved personally as a leader, but it's also how successfully he took all of the principles that we worked on together and applied them across different parts of his life as an athlete, as a CEO, as a husband, as a parent, and then worked to establish the exact conditions for his team that he was leading to thrive in the same way. Ultimately, when you strip it all away, you get beneath the varnish. High performance doesn't occur through accident. At some point, you've got to decide, what does high performance actually look like for you? You have to commit to it. And then you need to build the habits, systems, and environment to enable you to deliver it on and on and on, no matter how much change is occurring, no matter how high and relentless the pressure. This is what this conversation is about. Kelli, my wife and co-founder of Weird Cycle, joins me for the discussion. And together with Sami, we dig into his perspective, his lessons, his practical actions that have fueled his approach over the last decade plus to unlock sustained high performance for him and his team. So as you listen, don't just simply sit back and think, wow, this is amazing. It is pretty crazy. But I don't want you to admire. What I want you to do when you listen to this conversation, and if you've listened to it before, if you listened to it the first time, listen again. And ensure that you capture the lessons that you can immediately apply tomorrow. Set the mindset, the practices, the habits, and apply. Take the idea, test it, put it into action. This is your task today. And then see what happens. Now, before we jump into this, I do want to add one quick note. You see, if this conversation, as you listen, sparks questions about your own performance, or perhaps how your leadership team is navigating pressures, how are they interacting with one another, are they really change able, as we like to say, this is the work that we do at WindCycle. And you can learn more about it at windcycle.org. And if you'd simply find it useful to have a chat, let's do it. If you want to unpack some of your challenges that you're facing, or you just want a sounding board, I'm not too bad at that. I coach. And so I'm happy to do that. Just reach out. I'm happy to do a little bit of brainstorming. You can reach us through windcycle.org. And also, while I'm at it, I can't help but do this because this one's a special one. This is a chance for me and you to have fun. I want to give you one other very special invitation. If you're one of these people that's listening that loves to ride bikes, perhaps you like to also run or swim, or even might be a triathlete. And you like the idea of taking some of the lessons that we would discuss with Sami today into action with a visceral experience in an incredibly fun environment, why don't you join us in January? We just opened up our big executive retreat and Hawaii training camp. It's at the end of January 2027. And it is rather nice, thank you very much. It's all set out of an auberge hotel, fantastic meals, like-minded people. It's special. You don't have to be coached by Purple Patch. You don't have to be a triathlete per se, fine if you are, of course. What you do need to do, though, is you do love to ride bicycles because we do go and hit the miles there quite a bit. You'll be riding along the course of the Hawaii Ironman World Championship, but we're not training you for triathlon necessarily. You'll be going up into the hills. We've also got the access to go and do some swimming, some running, of course, a little bit of strength and conditioning, and talk through some of the lessons that we're going to unpack today. It's a week in Hawaii with me and the rest of the Purple Patch coaching team, alongside a small group of like-minded, driven individuals. We train, we eat wonderfully, we tackle some big challenges, and we create the space to learn, grow, and put this stuff into action so you can take it home into life. Pretty cool, hey? It's a fabulous week. It sells out quickly. We care a lot about getting the right group of people together. And so if you're interested, what I would recommend, you can head to the mother website there, purplepatchfitness.com, have a look under training. You'll see it there in camps. Or you can have a conversation. I'm happy to talk to you about it. Not the sales team, me, you and me, and find out whether you're the right fit. We'll talk about camp, whether you're a right fit, whether we'll work together in this environment. It's great. You can find it all on the website, but I'm also happy to set up a call. Just ping us there, info@purplepatchfitness.com. All right, without further ado, it is Sami Inkinen, CEO, entrepreneur, athlete, and perhaps the greatest living example of what sustained high performance across any arena can actually look like. I hope you enjoy the show. All right, so Sami, welcome. It's been quite some time. It's lovely to have you on the show, and thanks so much. And your first time in the Performance Center here in San Francisco.
Matt and Kelli, thank you so much for inviting me.
We've been excited for this one.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about leadership. We're going to talk about high-performing cultures. We're going to join the connection or join the dots between your journey in sport and your journey as a leader. But I think we can only start in one place, and that's where we met each other and our journey with coaching a little bit. And so we want to dig into a little bit of your past and our past together as it relates to coaching.
Yeah, Sami, so you were obviously a very talented triathlete and you were successful. Can you explain to us like why you decided to bring on a coach and how that kind of changed your experience?
Yeah, well, we all make mistakes, don't we?
We do. It's a regrettable one.
Maybe I'm already aging myself, but I'm trying to remember when I reached out to Matt, and it definitely was before 2010. So we're probably looking at 2007
Yeah.
initially.
Yeah.
Is a good, 17 years, which is crazy to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah, at the time I was building my previous company as an executive and co-founder of Trulia. And so we were a sort of high growth VC-backed company, I don't know, 100, 200 employees. So that was certainly kind of a 7 days a week job. And I was doing triathlons as a hobby, but was doing pretty well. I think honestly, I reached out to Matt for probably two main reasons. And the first one is that it's very difficult to see outside of your own fishbowl as a human in general, as a professional or as an athlete. And what I mean by that is you can convince yourself about any fact, whether it's true or not, in your own head. You could say, oh, I'm not performing well enough in sports, say triathlon or cycling, whatever. Clearly, I just need to exercise more. And you say that a couple of times and you convince yourself, when in fact, the right answer might be you should rest more. And so I think that was one reason that I thought, okay, for me to get to the next level, I have to make sure that I haven't convinced myself of bullshit or things that aren't true. So to have an outside person who can see inside my fistball from the outside should be very helpful. I think that was one realization. And by the way, I should say at the time there weren't all the podcasts and online information and social media, which I'm glad about because I probably would have sucked into that and tried to find the answer myself and then again convince inside my own fishbowl about facts that don't exist. But I think that was one reason. And then second is credit to Matt's reputation already at the time. I wanted to tap into your amazing knowledge about coaching and sports, and maybe there's something I can learn. But I think that it was those two reasons.
It's funny that you sort of your first side of that of looking in the fishbowl, because we've talked a lot about this, the most successful. I also coached a lot of professional triathletes, and in parallel to your journey, and you got enmeshed in the pro squad quite a bit. But when we reflect on the 15 years that I did that, and we take a step back, we had some incredibly talented athletes, but the ones that really built careers, that sort of had this really consistent high performance, tended to be the ones that were most coachable. And it's really interesting. And actually, you look at all sports, whether you're looking at Ronaldo or Messi or Serena Williams, they're very, very coachable people. And then you were interesting for me because you had that, and you were a high performing executive. And that's also a trend that we see, that as you go higher up in organizations, the more likelihood that there is that you're going to reach out and actually reach for external support.
Yeah.
It's not an individual journey ultimately.
Yeah. So I'm a physicist by training way back when, education wise, and my favorite math equation that relates to this, which I share with my team all the time, is 1.01 to the power of 365, which is to say, if you improve 1% every day for a year, how far will you get? And the answer is about 3,700% improvement in a single year if you improve just 1% per year. So to your point, like I think that's just a critical. It's very easy to sort of flatline and say, I know how to do this and just keep doing that. But in almost anything, basically, you can improve if you have that mindset, whatever you call it, growth mindset or whatever. But to have a coach or just have that mindset that you go back and say, hey, I did something, whether that's a race or work thing. Yeah, the result may matter, but what matters even more if you're in it for the long haul is to take a step back and say, okay, what are the 3 things I can learn? That's actually one habit that I think I learned from you as I was doing sports and triathlons, that after every event, the result was kind of nice, whatever it was. But I always went back and I forced myself to write 3 things. What are the 3 things I can learn from this experience for the next one?
Reflection.
Whatever that was. And then you think about it, if you do 10, 15 events a year, well, suddenly you have 30, 45 things to improve each year. And then you compound that 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and you get very far.
Yeah, the reflection is sort of one of our key traits that we talk about the whole time. And I think there's a really interesting thing in reflection as it relates to failure and success as well. People are really, really happy and eager to reflect when things don't go well. But I think it's absolutely is important to reflect when things do go well as well, because there's still lessons out of that. And even athletically, and this applies obviously to all things in life, but not every victory, at the pro level at you, necessarily means a great performance.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can win by accident in many ways.
Actually, there's someone, I don't remember the name now, but I think there's academic research behind what's the difference in mindset between like the Olympic gold medal winners and the kind of silver, bronze, and pretty good. I think, but at least this is a story I tell myself, that the result was that the very, very best, even after a win, step back and say, what is it that I can improve? Because the moment you think you've done it and you're the best and you're the perfect, that is definitely the beginning of the downhill. And so one thing that I've taken from that for business environment, and I think this is probably copied from Amazon, but I use this mantra: it's always day one. And particularly after we accomplish something fantastic, like relatively speaking, like milestone, that was great, and let's celebrate, but it's still day one. What is it that we can do better? Again, because if you think you've made it in whatever, especially in business, like that is definitely the beginning of the downhill. Like you have to have this day one mindset all the time.
Yeah, it's continual evolution and growth. When I always talk about our coaching relationship, I always label it as the ultimate optimization challenge. Because you were right at that. You were in the vortex of Trulia at that time. I mean, it really was this huge growth opportunity. And you were already a successful triathlete, amateur triathlete, that had pretty lofty goals. You were looking to train for and race at the highest level of amateur level of Ironman, half Ironman, the local race of Alcatraz and everything else. And most of your peers at the time that were going to be your competition were swanning around and doing 20 or 25 hours a week. We had a recipe, which people always assume was not true, but it actually was true because you tracked it religiously, but about 10 hours a week. And so we faced this optimization challenge. I'd love your perspective. And I think listeners would want to know of like, how did you actually manage and juggle all of those competing demands and still yield ultimately world-class results in such a limited budget of time?
Yeah. Well, first, in terms of results, just so listeners can understand, I would say I was very good at an amateur level, but it's nowhere near kind of winning Olympic gold. So I think that my fastest Ironman was 8:24, and then in Hawaii I went a couple of times under 9, and then I had bunch of 8 something sub 9 results. Although I would say that if it was today, we'd probably chip off 25 minutes just from better shoes and all the aerodynamics, more singlets and stuff like that. So anyways, the competitor in me is coming out like,
exactly. It's still in there.
20 minutes faster. But yeah, I think the conventional wisdom at the time was to do well in that very long distance. So even like qualify to something like the Hawaii Ironman, which is kind of the pinnacle of triathlon, I guess, still today. You have to train 20 hours or more. I knew I didn't even have the time. And by the way, sometimes, or I would say oftentimes, constraints are helpful because they make the problem solving easier. And I think we started our conversation like, okay, well, I have 10 or give or take hours per week to train. Like, how do we optimize around that? It's not an option for me to do 20 hours a week. And so, yes, indeed, I've tracked, I don't know, since 2000. So I have like 25 years of training still today. But the years that I did those Ironman performances, it was 10 to 12 hours a week. And didn't really change from that year round. And maybe there was 1 or 2 weeks that I had 15 on a holiday we could train more. But yeah, we had that constraint. How do we get most out of it? And then we built a program around that. And clearly it worked. Now you could ask the counterfactual, like, well, maybe that wasn't optimal. What would have happened if you did 20? Well, we never know that, but I'm reasonably certain like I kind of reached my genetic potential as a recreational athlete who actually has a job.
Yeah, I think I think the big thing for me, as it approached you of that, was what I always call about integration. So so it wasn't just that you had 10 hours a week and we slapdashed. It was actually really looking to integrate it to say, okay, what are all the components of life? Because you had to every single week basically go through a prioritization exercise. And I think most people think about their work week, and let's go outside of triathlon. Let's forget, because most of our listeners are not triathletes and are not looking to try and go under 9 hours at the Hawaii Ironman, but they are perhaps looking to integrate fitness into life and stay consistent with that and show up for their kids' sports games or whatever it might be. And I think most people do some form of exercise every single week to plan their work and their scheduled work, but fail to integrate everything. And one of the things that we sort of built together in many ways was something that now we call the Sunday Special at Purple Patch and at Wind Cycle, which is integrating all of those components, looking at work, looking at family, and looking at sport, and saying, let's build a recipe in which you can actually be successful.
Yeah, I'd probably copy that from you because I still use it. So I literally spend whatever it might be, 15 minutes every Sunday evening or afternoon planning my next week. Not just kind of the typical like, oh, what does my calendar look like? But as you know, I still train quite a bit and mostly cycling and do cycling races and so forth. But I plan my entire week every week on a Sunday evening. And yeah, it takes holistically into account everything that I have. And there's a couple of things, again, mantras that I've learned from you. One is stress is stress is stress. And what I mean by that is if I know that I have a cross-country flight and arrive at midnight and 6 a.m. meeting after that, that's a huge amount of stress. So that means there's not going to be a crazy workout on the following day. So that's just one example, like stress is stress is stress. Another example, the thing that I keep in mind is I try to, although my main job is to be a CEO and sport is just a hobby, I try to treat myself like an Olympic athlete, which is to say that I have to be sort of vibrant and sustainable over long periods of time. So again, if I have too many things in a week, that would not allow me to be at my kind of physical peak, I might go and say, okay, there's too many days back to back that I don't have enough sleep. I'm going to ask, my team or my assistant to like cancel the Thursday morning meetings because I have to sleep in. So this is the kind of planning I do every Sunday. And I think it really all comes down from kind of the sports experience and sports coaching, because in the sports context, it's way easier to manage that because everybody understands that like if you have a big workout or big race, you can't have an all-nighter. But as a professional, we easily forget that. We're kind of like, well, I can just grind it. Like I can go 2 nights without sleep. I can just do this. Now, obviously we can, but we are not performing at our peak, and it certainly isn't sustainable. So I use that kind of again, I'm not an Olympic athlete, but I use this mindset like, if I were an Olympic athlete, how would I plan this week? And how would I plan my energy, both for my brain work
Yes.
as a CEO, and then my workout? So they all come together in this sort of 15-minute planning session every Sunday.
Yeah.
And it's allowing you to show up your best at work because you're taking care of your body.
Yeah.
So you're also a better dad, likely, and
Yeah.
a better partner, and just a better performer in general.
Yeah.
I like the mindset of, as you say, it is very similar to what we talk about, but I think of myself like an Olympic athlete. You're not actually trying to model necessarily, in your mind, I'm an Olympic athlete, but you're borrowing from the strategies to help you in what's important for you, ultimately. I've also heard you say in other stuff outside of our coaching relationship, actually, a lot of my success is about the ability to say no and filter out, which is sort of coupled with what we're talking about here, like ruthless prioritization in a way. And I had a conversation with a guy that I coach, and I said, "When have you ever finished a week of work?" And he's a CEO, and thought, "I got everything done." It's never happened in history. There's always more to do, and so therefore we have to, for long-term success, be really, really good at prioritizing and not just trying to cram and fill our days. And you think that's a big anchor point of your success?
100%. And again, I have these sort of mantras that I now have over decades of doing this. Is one of the things that I keep telling to myself and also my team is, you can't finish work by working as a professional. Like, that's the one thing. If you packing something in a factory and it's like whatever 9 to 5, and when it's 5 it's absolutely done, by the way, which is easier than many knowledge workers, because it feels like the work's there all the time, which is true. So that's one mantra that I have, that I can't finish work by working. So what does that mean in practice? It means you have to decide what are the couple of things that matter and what are the 99% of things that, yeah, nice to have, but it at the end of the day doesn't really matter. So that's about saying no to a lot of things. So that's the one mantra that I use. And then the second thing is this, like, I have to say no to a lot of things. People ask me often, like, I can't believe how you can do all these things. And I think the kind of the Netflix headline version would be like, I built two over the last, let's see, since 2004. So I guess that's in last 20 years, I built two multi-billion-dollar companies as a founder.
Yeah.
I won world championships in my age group in triathlon, and, done lots of sports, rode across the Pacific, and people are like, how can you do all those things? The truth is, I don't do a lot of things. I do very few things, and I do them pretty well. That's the secret. I don't do a lot of things that quote unquote normal people do. Like, I don't watch movies. Maybe I should hang out with certain friends more than I do. But saying no is kind of secret to doing a few things very, very well. And it can be hard, but if you know what matters in life, it's kind of easy to then say no to the long tail of things.
Well, I wonder, because we've been dancing around this, and I want to sort of more formally join the connection between your journey in sport and your journey as a leader. I often talk about the bi-directional impact of the fact that you have these responsibilities, goals, missions, etc., in leadership, building Virta right now, and in parallel you have all of your hobbies, your quest in sport. But I always saw when we worked with each other for 6 years, something like that, 5, 6, 7 years. However, it felt like 20, but I think it was 5 magical years, Sami. But I really saw you as a great case study of someone that your leadership benefited from your journey of sport, and your experience as a leader actually helped you as an athlete. And I really saw that. And I just love your perspective on that, of how sport has fueled your leadership in many ways.
Yeah, well, first I will say, there's no way I could have operated at the level I have as a professional and founder for 20 years. And I'm proud of the fact that I still haven't cracked, and knock on wood here that it doesn't happen. But basically 20 plus years nonstop as a founder of a high growth VC backed company, one of which went public, and hopefully second one that may do the same in the foreseeable future. It would be very easy to crack mentally, emotionally, whatnot. And again, could happen tonight, but hopefully it doesn't. But I think, and it's kind of rare. And I say this because there is a method to the madness. I don't think I just got lucky, but in terms of sports and business, one thing I would say that what sports has given me is, one, it obviously the health foundation of health
Yeah.
coming into the sport personally. Second one is it's another outlet, both as a identity. So, if it's stressful at work or things not going as they should, I have this sports outlet and vice versa. And I remember, I think there was a point in time when for 6 or 12 months and I didn't have a job between my two companies. I asked Matt, like, I'm pretty good in this triathlon thing. Should I give it a shot and just kind of like be a professional for a year? And do you remember what you said? You said, I know you would go crazy. Like, there's no way you could be doing this full time. You better have something to do.
Yeah.
And I reflected it for like, I don't know, 24 hours and realized you're 100% true. So
The answer was no.
you're absolutely right. So having this yin and yang of two kind of almost like emotional and mental identities has been very, very helpful. And then it's also the ruthless prioritization that the sport has given me on the business side. And then we can talk about like how I've sort of manifested those to my team and my leadership team and others. But I would guess that the example of me having different interests, me, treating myself like an Olympic athlete, has helped the team by kind of emulation or trying to copy me.
Oh, I think it definitely, I'm sure it has. I mean, I guess what I'd like to hear is, there's a lot of people listening to this that may feel a little distance from your story because you're out here, right? You're an uber achiever, you're uber driven. And so is there some nugget or piece of wisdom for people just starting out? Like, what could they do to kind of shape their day or week in a simple way to kind of get started on this journey?
Yeah. Well, let's see what I would say. Again, I maybe there's sort of two things. One is this idea like treat yourself like an Olympic athlete. You can start from very, very simple things. And like Matt taught me in sports was everything starts from a foundation of health. And I think it's the same thing as a professional. So I think one thing I would say in treating yourself like an Olympic athlete is it comes down to really basics. It's sleep, nutrition, and some basic movement and sort of physical movement. And even if you live in a place like New York, there's something magical in being in nature, whether it's Central Park or something. That's both mental and physical. So I would say that's one thing, like just thinking the foundation of health just makes you a better leader. You show up with more, I think, spark in your step and more creativity and everything. So
And better cognitive function and ability to focus. Yeah.
and then this, obviously, mental health, it's wonderful that people are more open and share about it. But the point as a CEO, as a leader, is not to crack. And obviously, if you crack, sharing it is an honorable thing to do. But
Yeah.
the first goal has to be like, how do I take care of myself
Yeah.
so that I don't crack? So I think that would be one, again, treating yourself like an Olympic athlete. Let's start from the basics.
And just to interrupt there, because we use the word Olympic athlete and you are a triathlete, this does not mean that people have to take up competitive sport.
Correct.
I think that's an important thing. It's like you don't have to become a triathlete.
Yeah.
You don't have to sign up for a marathon, etc.
The reason I use this Olympic athlete is to sort of highlight that they are high performers. And then secondly, that for any athlete, the foundation of health is blatantly obvious. But again, maybe in the last few years it has changed. But if we look at the last 80 years, most successful businessmen and women, you see pictures of them, they were very successful later in a career. They look very unhealthy physically. That is not the optimal approach. And so that's why I use this metaphor of Olympic athlete.
Yes.
You have to take care of your physical health in order to perform best, in your brain, basically. Yes. That's why I use that as maybe one stepping stone. And then the second one is, I use this term internally. I call it sustainable high performance, which is to say that anyone can sprint for a short period of time, but to deliver kind of outstanding and differentiated results, every overnight success is like 5, 10, 15 years in the making,
Yes.
including personal careers. So you always, in my opinion, have to think about what is the sustainable high performance? How do I enable that? And of course, starts again from a physical health. But then otherwise, you also have to think like, how do I maintain that? Whether that's the Sunday planning, whether that's having like I feel like I have at least 3 identities. It's the CEO, founder, the tech, whatever builder, husband, father, like a family identity. And then I have this sort of athlete identity. So I knowingly cultivate those 3. Now I'm the same person in all those 3 contexts, but there's something in my brain where it's like I can kind of escape to one of them and be very single-minded in that. And it sort of revitalizes or rejuvenates me. Go back to work. It's like, oh, so awesome to be here. Don't have to be with the family or
Yeah.
I think that's just my tool, but that's again, how do you create the conditions for sustainable high performance that you don't feel like you're just drained all the time?
I mean, that's it. That's like the leadership advantage, right? So over these last 20 years, you've just been maniacal about looking after yourself. And by doing that, it's unlocked all sorts of great things for you.
Yeah.
Athletics, partnerships, work.
Yeah.
I heard you giggle when he used that phrase because the initial module of Wind Cycle that we love to start with is setting the mindset under this banner of sustainable high performance. So,
Wait, did he
so-
steal that from us?
But so it comes back to this question I often get from people is like, I don't understand how you can do all these things. And to me, my question is the opposite, which is like, I can't understand how I could do all these things without having more than one thing to focus on. So it's not a matter of taking a pie of hours and trying to split it. It's more on managing my energy. And
Yes.
if I were just to do one thing, have one identity and one focus, like I would 100% burn out. There's just no question about it. So there's no way I could do what I do unless I had these multitude of interests and focus areas.
So, Sami, one of the things that's been coming up for us when we've been going into these corporations and talking about this is people often say, hey, look, like, I love this concept. I'm bought off on it. I want to do it, but I don't have enough time and I get stuck. What do you say to that?
Well, again, this is hopefully doesn't sound too voodoo, but it's about managing energy as opposed to time. Now, obviously, to do something, anything takes time.
Yeah.
I would start from something very, very small and simple. And if for someone the challenge is how do I take care of my kind of physical foundation of health, I would start from some very simple 1 or 2 things. If it's related to getting out and exercise, it could be something like, we're going to set the alarm like 9 minutes earlier than before. I have my shoes and I'm just going to go on, I don't know, walk 5 minutes outside. And then I'm going to add 1 minute every week. And then soon enough, it's maybe 20 minutes. Again, this is a silly example, but if someone is doing absolutely nothing for their physical health, and instead of whatever they're doing today, they start the day with like a 10-minute walk outside alone with no phone, no nothing, I'm 100% convinced that there will be benefits to their thinking, their happiness, their stress levels, everything. So that's one example. And then for other people, if the issue is that they don't sleep enough, like obviously there's a whole host of things you can do, like avoiding caffeine in the second half of the day, like that's again depends so on the individual, but the rule could be like after 11 a.m. 0 a.m. 0 caffeine, or I'm gonna go to bed every night before 10 p.m. no matter what. It's a hard and fast rule, and 10 p.m. or something like that. But I would pick 1 or 2 these sort of physical improvement areas that are super simple to execute. Like 5-minute walk is very easy.
Yeah. It's accessible.
Yeah.
It's interesting because one of the sayings we always talk about is embrace the journey, and any time in the history of every athlete that I've ever coached, when I first, including you, by the way, when I first meet them and I look at the landscape of everything they're doing, there's always many, many things that you want to adjust that can evolve. And what you have to do is build mini victories because you're building trust at the same time and you want the athlete to feel successful. So you filter those out and you say, okay, what are the sort of 1, 2, 3 things that they can action really simply and they can feel validated from. So then you build a bit of trust, but they also get a little bit of feeling better. And I think that's really important with what you said there, where start really, really small and feel the benefits, because that transformation takes time. We're talking about habit creation, behavior modification, often across a multitude of areas, and you can't rush it. What you can do, though, is commit to a plan of action to improve.
Yes.
And that, as you say, like, it might be just as much as going for a 5 or 10 minute walk. That can be the catalyst, often of which then other habits can be built on top of. And I think that's such an important component.
I'm no psychologist, but now in my day job at Virta Health, where we reverse diabetes and obesity, I've observed this. I think this is wired to us humans. Again, I'm not a biologist or psychologist, but the feeling and observation of personal progress and success is very strong positive drug. It's very addictive. And I say this because we now observe 100,000 people very obese and struggling, and sort of sustainably help them to lose weight. That's just one example. Like when they see like a pound or two a week disappears, like it is one of the most exciting things, drugs, quote unquote drugs, happening in their lives. Like it is so exciting. And when in our case, it's sort of effortless, it just keeps people going. And so
It's like an upward spiral.
yeah, producing those little wins, I think is, whatever you start doing, new thing, and you learn is slightly better. And so that's why I am a huge believer that you implement one super, super simple thing and you start seeing the results is very exciting. You want to do more of it. Absolutely.
So you mentioned Virta there, and we want to go beyond just Sami. We want to talk about one of the big things that we really see, and in fact we saw this with the Purple Patch Pros. So when we took a team approach, that's where things started to really become exponential in results. We almost had performance inevitability. You've got a reputation, and you've got great success of building amazing culture within teams, high performance cultures, both in Trulia and now Virta. We want to dig into to Virta a little bit, and your role as a leader, and how you created this fantastic high performance culture. Before we do, a lot of listeners might not really know much about Virta. And I think it's a great moment because both Kelli and I are so impressed, but also inspired by your mission and what you get done. So can you just give us a couple of minutes on Virta? Give us the snapshot. Why did you create this? Where are you at? What are you solving right now? What's the mission?
Yeah, the mission of Virta Health is to reverse type 2 diabetes and obesity in 1 billion people. And we achieve that with a combination of provider-led telemedicine, so supporting patients remotely and virtually. And then secondly, the therapy really is as simple as nutrition through lifestyle change. And the miracle of Virta really is that it actually works, where basically all nutrition-based programs over the last 3-4 decades have failed. And people lose an average of 13% of their body weight sustained on average 1 year and sustained at 2 years. So these days I like to say that we deliver Ozempic-like results without the drug, like truly nutritionally, and to the point that we've now treated hundreds of thousands of American adults, and some of our patients have permanently tattooed our company logo in their bodies, kind of like an Ironman after we delivered these outcomes. And I mention that because it hopefully highlights the depth and magnitude of positive impact that our patients have. So anyway, so that's what we do. The company itself is about 1,000 employees and a couple of $100 million in revenue. So it's a real business. It's a large, small company, but obviously small in Fortune 500 context, and growing very fast, almost doubling year over year. And I say sadly because the problem of obesity and diabetes is so big, and there's so much to do, and it's definitely still just, as I've said before, day one for us.
Yeah, that's an incredible mission.
Yeah. How many people pass away a year from diabetes or related complications?
Yeah, so there's two ways to look at it. Directly, it's tens of thousands, so nearly 100,000 in America alone.
100,000 a year.
Yeah, it's in that order of magnitude. But then if you look at people who die from cardiometabolic disease, because usually they have type 2 diabetes, and then it's sort of up for debate whether it was high blood pressure or cardiovascular disease or diabetes, because they are the same thing effectively. Then you're looking at hundreds of thousands. So it's one of the, cardiometabolic disease is the number one killer in America. So people with insulin resistance, inflammation, obesity, basically metabolic disease, that is the number one killer today.
Can I just ask where, slightly tangentially, but it does spark an interest. Is telemedicine, nutritional intervention, at the core of it, when you believe some of that success, accountability, support, community, are those elements, do you see those elements as really important, supporting sort of roles?
100%. So people always ask, wait, how is this possible? You say you reverse type 2 diabetes, you get people off of insulin, and yes, indeed, published peer-reviewed results, hundreds of thousands of people benefit, and those are some of the key elements. But it's always a combination of two things. One is the approach to nutrition science. If you ask people to do the wrong things, obviously it's not going to work. So we have the right science, and how do we individualize that at scale? So that is one piece of it. But then you can have the best science, best protocol in the world. But if people don't follow it, and we can't support in a little hiccup in your life, obviously it's going to fail. So then that's kind of the second part of it, which is what you detailed. So the support, the community, we have medical doctors who work for us, full-time employees. We have coaches who use remote monitoring. So practically on an almost hourly basis, we know what's floating in your bloodstream. So we can react quickly and say, hey, maybe you should adjust this thing to get back on track. And so it is really a combination of right approach to nutrition and individualization, and then all these things that you mentioned, the support. It's sort of A times B. If one of them is 0, we all know math, end result is 0. So you have to get both of those two things right.
Way less important of a mission and task, world-class performance amongst the pros, but it really reminds me of the Pro Squad, the Purple Patch Pro Squad, where we had as you well know, a pretty polarizing methodology. How can we get people to actually follow, these athletes to actually follow and adhere to having the courage to recover and integrating strength? And we set up non-negotiables and a whole bunch of mechanisms of support and accountability. And that was the thing that got us to hold traction. I was really interested in that.
Yeah, you really have to get, again, you have to have the science and the protocol right, but then you have to have the support, individualization, and quote unquote adherence, which is kind of a negative word. And in today's world, information has more or less been commoditized. Like you can go to Google or you can go to AI. You can find any piece of information there, like basically any problem, and more or less likely it's correct. However, why haven't we solved all the world's problems? Starting from metabolic health to high performance at the office and whatnot. And so the second piece is, how do you actually implement that? Like, how do you adhere? How do you then believe that that's right? And then when you have the first hiccup, how do you make adjust and course correct? And so this is kind of where like coaching and to me, at the end of the day, it's human to human comes to play. So again, information is more or less free today. Anyone can access all the information in the world through a smartphone, but then how do you implement that? And I would predict that the value of implementation and coaching will just go up, and the value of information itself is going to go very rapidly towards 0.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So just circling back, we've talked a lot about your individual performance, and we've got to learn so much about Virta. So thank you for sharing. One of the questions that's kind of bubbling up for me is, what do you think a leader's role is in shaping a sustained high performance culture? Like how do you do that at Virta?
It's a good question. There's probably some tangibles and things that I do consciously, and then there's things that I do I don't even know how I do and if I do them. There's a lot of things. I'm trying to think a couple of things. One is I definitely always had a very conscious focus on company culture, and that starts from obviously defining it early, that hopefully it's somewhat aligned with the founder or the founders, because you can't fake it, you have to be authentic. So defining values and then living up to them, and having practices that allow people to kind of follow the values along the way. I think that's one huge part of it. Second one is, which is I think the most powerful, is like however you show up as a leader, is people will start slowly imitating. And obviously I over-index among CEOs, founders, very much on a kind of physical health, athletics, and so forth. So I actually try to under-index it in my kind of what I talk and what I say, but everyone can see and hear what I do and how much I take care of myself. So I'm hopeful that most people then say, hey, maybe I should take care of myself. And I'll just give you sort of anecdotal example of this. Again, our treatment at Virta is nutrition based. I never tell people like, hey, you're gonna eat better and do this and that. But I can tell you that almost everyone who joins the company as an executive or otherwise, within their first 2 years as an employee, they're like, maybe I should sign up for this employee version of the treatment to take better care of myself. And so that's just an example of, I think, just looking around and seeing what I do, like maybe I should take better care of myself and use our own product is one example. So that's kind of the second thing. And then the third one is I do use my communication vehicles quite a bit. So I write a team letter to the whole company once a week. I'm now written 500 of them. I speak in every Monday all hands a little bit, and obviously I have leadership meetings. So I talk about these topics like sustainable high performance. I write about them, like what does that mean in practice? So those are some of the, I guess, mechanisms, things that I do consciously, and
That's great.
hopefully,
On a really tangible level, and I think about your journey, and you choose to, with Meredith, your wife, go and row your boat over 42 days to Hawaii, and you're training for Ironman. You've just come home from Cape Epic, which is a very challenging mountain bike race through South Africa. And so you take on these big challenges, and so many of the buzzwords in corporate performance, resilience and adaptability. There's no doubt that those journeys, taking on big challenges, helps foster and develop those through experiential learning. So as a leader, do you really encourage, like, is there a cultural component of Verta of not necessarily go and row your boat to Hawaii? That's not what you're encouraging, but do you embrace culturally people taking on challenges to help them build those traits that you're looking for as a leader?
yeah, I talk about this sustainable high performance a lot. And I would say, certainly as a leader, I'm not the kind of like, damn, work harder kind of a person. I'm more like the opposite, which is to say that I hope we mostly hire people who are very self-motivated and they really want to do the best work in their lives. And if anything, they kind of put too much into it. So what I mean by that, I'm a little bit kind of the opposite is I try to manage people's energy for them. So example is we have some systems like, I think it's if you've been 5 or 6 years, I'm now blanking but once you've been certain years you worked at Virta, you have a sabbatical that you can take, which is fully paid. So that's an example of, it's like, okay, this is like on a macro cycle, you should have a break and recharge yourself. I think it's a 1 month, which by European standards is called a summer vacation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So there's that. Second one is particularly people who report to me as leaders. Like if I notice like clearly like they dialed the screw themselves too much, I'm like, hey, maybe you should just go and take a Friday and Monday off and have a 4-day weekend and go do whatever with your spouse or family. So I often try to manage people's energy that way. And it's less of a problem like, hey, work harder. Like I think we hire people who are very, very self-motivated. So that's how I implement sort of sustainable high performance in a team and try to build resiliency in that sense. And then I think secondly, again, comes back to my own behavior.
Yeah.
Hopefully, most of the people in the team are like, like he's doing something right. Can I pick up from his behavior? But I'm not very prescriptive and say, hey, this is what I do. You should do the same.
Yeah.
Outside of kind of just professional duties.
Happens by osmosis. So if you've we asked this question for folks that don't identify as an athlete on an individual level. What about for leaders that are listening and think, I want to level up here and I want my teams to level up? Is there any piece of parting advice to finish up the show that you could maybe give them of the long journey of cultural development to sustained high performance? But what would you say to a leader listening to say, you know what, I want my organization to level up on this?
Yeah, well, let's try to give two things. I will say the first one, I'll again remind, like, there really aren't shortcuts to most things, personal performance or organizational performance. Like, it's a long journey, and again, most kind of overnight success stories are 5-10 years in the making. So I do think you have to think about it. Sustainable high performance and compounding, like that's what it is, like little things, and you do those things right over a long period of time. And then a second thing, again, I will say that you have, as a professional, you have to think of yourself as a professional athlete again, even if you don't do any sports. But how do you take care of yourself? So I would pick one thing, whether that's sleep or movement or nutrition, one of those three things. I would say, what's a one thing in one of those three areas that I can do better tomorrow? Small steps over a long period of time, and you have amazing results.
That side, just I'll add one piece of coaching context because I can't help it. But being a coach, sometimes stress is the word. You know, people talk about stress the whole time. If you think about stress processing, stress management, we really have a few tools at our disposal. Sleep, really important. Movement is actually scientifically validated of that. Proper nutrition, so that we're not overloading in the right type of food, the right quantity. And hydration, we would add that when you're dehydrated. Those are your levers. And so it can be really simple to help you build capacity to be able to manage the competing demands.
Just remember that beer also hydrates, but that may not be the optimal.
That might not be the optimal. Despite my English heritage, I have to say, as a performance coach, that's not it.
Yeah. Well, Sami, thank you so much for joining us.
Oof. Unbelievable. Just amazing. And I got a front row seat. In fact, I got to build much of that with Sami. Pretty incredible experience. And one of my favorite athletes, don't tell anyone else, that I've ever had the opportunity to work with. Before we get going, a quick word. Firstly, if you love the show, if you found it intriguing, please share it with someone who might benefit. Of course, always a critical review is nice as well. And also, finally, win cycle. Remember that. We've coached world-class athletes for more than 2 decades, high-performing executives, meshed them together with bi-directional impact and benefit. We've learned the principles that drive sustained high performance across individuals and teams. And guess what? Whether you're a world-class athlete, whether you're a top business leader, the actual principles are pretty much the same. Performance is performance. And our program Win Cycle takes all of those lessons into something that's very simple, very actionable, and ultimately drives impact and outcomes. That's what we care about. And so if you're curious of how that might apply to you and your team, check it out, wincycle.org. Very, very simple. And as I promised before early in the show, if you'd like to have a conversation or some questions around it, and then feel free to book a complimentary strategy call with us. It's all on the website. Bring us the challenge. We'll help you think it through. All right, we'll see you next time. Cracking show. I hope you enjoy. Guys, thanks so much for joining, and thank you for listening. I hope that you enjoyed the new format. You can never miss an episode by simply subscribing. Head to the Purple Patch channel of YouTube, and you will find it there, and you could subscribe. Of course, I'd like to ask you, if you will subscribe, also share it with your friends, and it's really helpful if you leave a nice positive review in the comments. Now, any questions that you have, let me know. Feel free to add a comment, and I will try my best to respond and support you on your performance journey. And in fact, as we commence this video podcast experience, if you have any feedback at all, as mentioned earlier in the show, we would love your help in helping us to improve. Simply email us at info@purplepatchfitness.com or leave it in the comments of the show at the Purple Patch page, and we will get you dialed in. We'd love constructive feedback. We are in a growth mindset, as we like to call it. And so feel free to share with your friends. But as I said, let's build this together. Let's make it something special. It's really fun. We're really trying hard to make it a special experience, and we want to welcome you into the Purple Patch community. With that, I hope you have a great week. Stay healthy, have fun, keep smiling, doing whatever you do. Take care.